Call this meeting to order, Oconee County Council Strategic Planning Retreat. It's Tuesday, February 11th, 2020, and a little bit after 9 p.m. Appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to work on this. And we will start with our administrator on budget analysis, and let you take us and let us roll.
Actually, I'm going to ask the finance director again this year to do our budget review. And you should have copies here on your desk, the annual budget update. For those in the audience, copies of all of the PowerPoints are available on the left front row here. You'll also see at your seats that you have the FY19 audits that will be presented at the next council meeting on February 8th. Grant Davis from Malden and Jenkins will be here to go over that with you at that time, but we'd give them to you so you can have some good reading material between now and then. Where do I point, Katie? There it goes. It's basically about the same as it is from year to year, so you're familiar with what we're going over. The cash flow, the expenditure history, revenue history, millage rate, net margin, the fund balance breakdowns for each fund, capital projects, special revenues, rock quarry, and then will be open for any items of interest. This is the cash flow, and you'll see that the revenues are steadily increasing above the expenditures. This is the general fund only. Last year we moved all the capital vehicle and equipment to a new fund with its own milling. So that's going to help with building up that fund balance for us in the general fund. This just shows you some actual expenditures for the last few years, and you can just see how that has flowed. And then the budgeted numbers for this current year. On the next slide is the revenue. You'll see where they budgeted 20 numbers, and then you'll see what I'm projecting. So I'm projecting a little over $2 million more than what we budgeted, and that is very conservative because under the license, permits, and fees, register of deeds, to date, the budget was going to be $785, and to date we've done $932,000. So I'm projecting, right around 1.2. There's been a big increase in the register of deeds. Solid waste tipping has also seen a pretty big increase, and our interest is still running good for the interest revenue. Excuse me. The millage rate trend you'll see for several years. You'll see where we added the 2 mills for the capital equipment and vehicle. You'll see the operating went up. Economic development was added to that. The rest of everything has remained pretty equal. And I'll have some more information on the capital equipment and vehicles later on when we get to that slide. I added a pie chart. This is the pie chart that was used for the tax billings. You would saw it on the back. It just shows this is including the school debt and the school operations our special revenue funds, capital projects, all of those. And it just shows you, when you pay your taxes, what portion of your taxes are going to operations for county, school bonds, our bonds, and then our other special funds. Our debt margin is really good. We've paid off some things, and we're just bonding at about 25.5%. So there's room for some big projects if you have those sometime in the future. Okay, fund balance. Our fund balance increased this year. The unassigned fund balance increased about $760,000. But overall, because we had some subsequent year rollover encumbrances, the overall assigned balances with the unassigned is $1.8 million was what it was increased this year. We used about $105,000 of the solid waste reserve. The health care stayed the same, transportation grant, the OPEB, those all remained the same. So our unassigned fund balance as of June 30th was $7,172,523. And then in your audit books, for future reference, you can turn to page 23, and it's going to show you the budget to actual. And it'll show you the breakdowns per department for revenue, how those expenditures were spent. Okay, now for the capital projects funds. Economic Development Fund is the first one. That fund balance for the capital projects for the economic development, they didn't spend but around $456,000 last year, so the balance for them increased $1.3 million. The bridge and culverts, you'll see they spend around $35,000. There's been some, paving contracts, and due to weather and all the rain and different things, it's sort of held them back from being able to do a lot of the big projects. So they increased $536,000. And then for the new one, the Capital Equipment and Vehicle Replacement Fund, there has been quite a bit of action in this fund this year. There's been some really exciting things replaced that have been needing to be replaced for many, many years. And you had budgeted the 1.6. As of date, we have spent 1.4. And that's including some of the things that's going to be on your agenda for the next budget meeting. So all of those are included in that category. But, vehicles like for the sheriff's office, the road department, they have replaced, their dump trucks, a backhoe, solid waste, a roll-off truck, and a track hoe, and some other vehicles. That has really been a big help with replacing some of the capital vehicles. This is the general fund capital. This is what we call our 12 fund. The first thing is the insurance proceeds. The majority of that is for the burned area of the sheriff's office. When we receive those insurance proceeds, that's where we're paying for those replacement. Their content replacement will come out of the general fund. But then you can see the different categories down through there where the airport improvement projects is in the whole 34, but it fluctuates due to it revolves over several different years, and we don't always get our reimbursements prior to the year end of anything that we have spent. And then you'll see the capital lease, and then we're still holding some 2015 GO bond money. That was labeled for the Bounty Land substation. Okay, our special revenue funds. The emergency services fund is at 2.9 for the rural fire. They added around $43,000 to their fund balance as of June 30th. That's, where for all the rural fire departments that we have throughout, they get, station money and different things like that. The 911 funds is our 911 center. A lot of those funds come from the state. They're reimbursable, and they added around $249,000 to their fund balance. I think that if you haven't seen that facility, you need to, because it is an awesome place and those very talented people. Okay, Tri-County Tech, they added around $139,000 to their fund balance. And then the road department, they added around $866, because I think we have carried forward the road paving rollovers for a couple of years due to the weather. So, there's not been a whole lot that any of those projects that could be completed. Okay. Next. The rock quarry. You'll see their operating revenues and their expenses. They contributed to the general fund $500,000 this past year, and in this coming year it'll be $750,000. You'll see their net position. And then in your audit book, you'll see some further information on those proprietary funds that can show you a little more of the cash flow, and those sort of things. Now, the clicker's not getting along. Okay. Do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
Due to this rain, the bridge and culverts are gonna have to probably have an increase, because I know 2 roads that have been blown out by this rain.
Mm-hmm. We've had a lot of it.
Well, I have a statement.
Yes, sir.
So if we're projecting $2 million over our budgeted revenues and our expenditures, we should not spend that money.
We should not, you're
That
correct.
should go to unassigned fund balance. Right now, you're at 7.1, 7.2, right?
Yes, sir.
You have 50 million expenditures, 20% would be 10 million.
Yes, sir.
Hard times are coming. It's gonna be an economic downturn at some point, and we
Absolutely.
need to be prepared.
And this will be the first time we've put that sort of investment back into the fund balance without expending them, when notified of the remaining funds at the end of the fiscal year. So we're very proud to have a council that is willing and able to push us to do that.
Anybody else?
No, just John's right.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Thank you and your team for putting that together, and appreciate all that y'all are doing. Continue to move us forward, and it's nice to hear money being added, and great projects being done, and I know from a standpoint of the millage that we did last year, it eased a lot of the problems that we saw coming in front of us, so that's one of the reasons why we are able to have that, seeing the $2 million come back across, because I agree exactly with what you're saying. I appreciate council pushing forward to make sure that we're funding and doing everything properly, so when that time comes, we're prepared for that, so. That'll lead us, any other budget discussion at this time? It's also good to see, the proposal on the rock quarry and what they're continuing to do moving forward. That was a substantial, investment that we had. And that's a tough machine to learn, but I know as we see moving forward, it's gonna be a great purchase, coming forward. So thankful for all that they're doing to continue to move forward with that. And selling more rock is the name of the game. That's why we purchased the piece of equipment, so. Any other budget discussion at this time? Okay. We'll go into strategic goals discussion. Y'all have the 2000, okay, that's fine.
You want to do a review of last year?
That's perfect. That's what I was going to do.
I'm sorry, can you go ahead with that?
No, you're good.
Where, oh wait, I think I handed out for it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're going to do a brief review of last year's strategic planning goals and objectives, as well as looking forward to this year. Morgan's here, so credit where credit is due. We loved your economic development annual report last year and sort of modified it to fit our own needs. And we are very proud of the accomplishments from last year. I just want to take these and pass them around, please, sir. I didn't give you two, Mr. Hart. We also have copies of these, again, front left chair. We don't have a table up here this time because we stole it for budgeting purposes. And here's a PowerPoint, so I just want to take a copy and pass it around, please, sir. Again, copies of this PowerPoint are up here as well. Note pages for the audience if needed. The 2019 was a fun year for some of us. It was a rough year for some of us. It was a rainy year for a lot of us. Katie, am I okay?
Ma'am?
Am my volume okay?
I think so. Yes, ma'am.
So, where am I clicking? What am I pointing to?
In the air.
I think up in the air? Uh-huh. You should just, really? You point to the, I like it. We used to have to point behind there over to the computer. So the introduction to last year is that council gave us a list of goals and strategies that they wish to see accomplished during the budget year in the physical year of 2019. We're just going to do a brief overview on where we stood on those, what those accomplishments were, and impediments we faced along our way. We did accomplish a few things that council did not have on their agenda based on some of the actions that occurred during last year, including flooding, fires, and a cybersecurity moment. We're still calling it just a moment. I like pointing to the ceiling, but I wonder where it goes. So we'll start with the community services. We implemented, again, voter safety and public awareness by doing the temporary signs at all of the county parks and at the boat ramps. Additional life jackets were purchased last year. We're looking at purchasing additional life jackets again for the upcoming season. The meth education and treatment, we have a grants administrator who has been attending an opioid crisis meeting. Is that every month or every other month, Maddie? Every month.
Every month. We're looking at the ways that the county can identify and assist public healthcare entities and public service entities, as we do have a drug awareness campaign very actively involved at Prisma Health. Now, we can't take credit for the High Falls Safety Initiative, but we can certainly take credit for calling and calling and begging and calling. And we want to thank Duke Power for the safety initiatives with the installation of the boat at High Falls, or Fall Creek. I said High Falls, but it's Fall Creek, actually. That's just an error if y'all want to make a note of that. And for the Emergency Services Capital Vehicle Plan, you all know that we just initiated the lease for the purchase of 6 new engines. We are continuously working on that plan, looking for the future. We decided it would be best for emergency services with the designated 2.9, that we not take the money that was in the capital vehicle replacement plan out of the 10 fund, because there's already millage designated for emergency services. So we may be discussing adding a portion of mill to that this coming budget year for a consistent and reliable funding mechanism for annual replacements on some of the vehicles. We purchased roughly 18 fire trucks almost 20 years ago. Those 18 are coming up for replacement in a lump sum. It was something that had to be done at the time, but I don't think anybody was looking 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road on how we're going to replace that many at one time. Ongoing initiatives do include the removal of the former Fairplay School. We have had a couple of hiccups there. One, the county is not the owner. The entity that is the owner is now located in another area, so they have yet to be able to have a demonstration of need because they're not in the facility. Am I not being picked up clearly? Sorry. Thank you. And the Fairplay Fire Department is interested in the property, but as they are not the owner, we've had some difficulty getting any forward movement with grants there. The construction of the Oakway School walking path has been put on hold because of weather. We thought we would be able to start working on this last fall, and then it started raining. We thought we could work on it at the beginning of the year. Then it started raining. We were actually going to go work on it this morning, but then it started raining. That one will work in as time allows. The expenditure there is less than $25,000. I don't see that being an issue if we ask council to roll that over to the next budget year. We do, in fact, Mr. Hart has just proclaimed, have quite a few bridges, roads, culverts that we need to be working on as the first priority. The walking path does remain a priority for us, but it is secondary to roadways. Development for elderly and children in Oconee County. Oconee County continues to contribute to the betterment of the elderly and students in Oconee County. We participate in leadership days. We have done school seminars. We house 13 residents at Lakeview. We've contributed to the Senior Solutions for $90,000 a year. Our contribution may not be in service that we provide, but it is definitely in financial support that we do provide. Culture, tourism, and recreation. Last year, council wanted us to keep moving forward with the expansion of the taxiway and apron space at Oconee Regional Airport, and we are extremely fortunate to have received $3.6 million in federal funding for that expansion. Joel Davis started construction, I believe, 3 weeks ago, and we're having pre-con yesterday on the relocation for the ramp. Seneca Library improvements. We actually council funded the replacement for the Seneca Library roof last year at $40,000, and we've done some outdoor aesthetical improvements, including improving the parking area there. All right, Liddell, I'm with you. There we go. Culture, tourism, and recreation continued. We purchased 212 acres last year for the expansion of Shaw-Ram County Park, which is our wildest and most scenic rustic park in Oconee County, and we hope that you all are able to come and join us when the weather permits on a walking tour of this great property. This was in part by Natureland Trust, which was a grant as well. Construction of compliant restrooms at Shaw-Ram and at High Falls. We are still working on those. As you all know, the weather has slowed down anything related to construction or land clearing in the last several months. We added pickleball at South Cove. We had more people playing pickleball, more people interested in playing pickleball than tennis. So we decided to go 50-50 and have half tennis, half pickleball, and it has been quite a raging success. I've yet to play, but I hear it's pretty fun. And we continue to make improvements to the 11 boat ramps that we leased from the Army Corps on Lake Hartwell. Most notable would be our recent engineering investment for the expansion of Seneca Creek, which is on the other side of the airport. We'll be adding parking spaces and improving the ramp there. Economic development, Annie is here. Yay, hi. Morgan's here. Yay, hi. So last year was a really good year for Oconee County, despite the fact that unemployment remains so low that it's even scary for us. It's hard for an industry to be attracted to an area where our unemployment is 1%, give or take. So we did have $37.7 million in capital investments last year, and I'll just skim through these pretty quickly because I feel like as we go through these with council, we celebrate a lot, but if we look at a bigger picture, yes, I said 37.7, and that is a great investment in Oconee County. Horton Holdings will be operational hopefully within the next month or so. 125 new jobs there. ACI Plastics did a $10 million expansion. Baxter Enterprises has done a $5.7 million expansion with the creation of 22 new jobs. We are continuing to work on Road A with the SCDOT grant for OITP, and that'll be the secondary road that comes in behind where the Tri-County Tech OITP campus is now. We're continuing to work with the Sewer Authority after the completion of the intergovernmental agreement for Oconee County to maintain ownership and operational expenses of the 13.2-mile sewer line to the I-85 corridor. Council has approved expansion for that, and we are looking forward to seeing what the future holds near I-85. Opportunity zones and Utica revitalization. As you all know, the county is still in the process of negotiating purchasing property within Utica. We know that this investment in Utica is small, one step forward, one step forward, one step forward. Utica did not happen overnight. Mr. Davis and I actually spent some time in Utica last week. We rode around and looked at the mill. I do believe with it being in the opportunity zone, and now that there's more clarity from the federal government about rules and regulations with investments to opportunity zones, that more investors may be interested because the groundwork is laid out a little better this year than it was last year. There was some confusion on terms and investment periods. So I believe that marketing our opportunity zones will be something that the council and administration and staff will be focused on in the year 2020. Our technology incubator, the relocation of the Oconee Economic Alliance, last year we did list that as a priority, but with the departure of Ms. Hartman, I felt like it was best for us to put that on hold. It was not fair to ask someone in an interim position to find a permanent location in which they were not going to be in. And the establishment of the Bountyland Fire Substation. This is something that I would like to request that we consider this year as a priority. We all know that there was a new community approved off of South Cove Road. We all know Oconee County had access to at least 2 parcels at the soon-to-be former Hamilton Career Center site. And in the best interest of the citizens that we serve with the expenditures that we would be making on that substation, I'm not sure that the best location is at that former school site. We know that the traffic implementation plan for Bountyland is going to be delayed because of the challenge with Norfolk Southern Railroad being there. They're not being access to a secondary road. I think that that's something, and it was wise for us not to throw up a building and just get it done, because I think this time we probably need to back up and reconsider where we'd like to place that substation. Ooh, I thought I was going to go too far. General government, that is what we are doing right now. This is this building, this is our operational, this is one of those things that generally council doesn't see or hear about happening. But we have completed the lease renewal with the Tri-County Entrepreneurial Development Corporation, say that fast 3 times, They have 7 new small businesses in 2019. Oconee County does support our small businesses, even though we don't put on our cheering outfits and scream for them. We absolutely do provide the mentorships, the location, and Mr. Eldridge is still president of this, yes? The guidance under Dave Eldridge is unbelievable. I don't know if you gentlemen know him, but he is an impeccable leader and a great mentor for small business development here in Oconee County. We're very, very lucky to have him. We increased the unassigned fund balance, Mr. Elliott. We have passed the capital vehicle and replacement plan. Liddell said everybody was excited. I actually meant to bring my capital vehicle replacement list. I know we all went over it about 1,000 times last year, but we're 4 away from finishing. 4 for 4 vehicles, and a couple of them came in a little over budget from when the plan was created. You know, we started talking about the plan in late 2018. And we won't have a fund balance in that account for quite some time because the amount of vehicles we need to replace on a consistent schedule. I'm hoping about year 5, we start being able to slow down on some of the purchases and create a fund balance. I learned yesterday that we may in fact be spending, I don't know, about 1/3 of it on one piece of equipment for solid waste at the landfill. We have a deputy, Steve Wessendorf is here. This is first of our step in our Pine Street security plan, and thank you, Sheriff, too, for working with us on this. Sheriff's Office, what was that, 3 years ago? We did a physical assessment, security assessment of this building. We are very, very lucky that Steve is here, and he has gone around and started looking at deficiencies within the building, staff training measures, implementation of plans for the future. We did a mild construction job out of 2 separate offices on the back hallway, which is our largest publicly visited hallway, and we felt that would be the most efficient place to put the deputy's office there. We also had a cyber day, and Mr. Elliott said last year that one of your priorities was for us to start looking at increased cybersecurity. Now, while we did get attacked, I do have to say, we were recognized, congratulated, internationally by cybersecurity firms. On the day of the event itself, of course, we didn't have computers, so we were using telephones and our personal phones for Googling who to call, what to do. And as it turned out, we were so far ahead of the game that it wasn't funny. But it didn't mean that we don't need to go back. Everyone here can attest to the fact that everybody's computer got upgraded. IT's not here. But they upgraded 746 computers in less than 200 days. And that's a staff of 3. I'm clicking. Other completed projects include the rock quarry improvements, which Mr. Davis just highlighted on. We're still working out a couple kinks there, but rock is coming out in 6 different chutes as we speak. Weather permitting, now that we're up and running and we have everything on the ground and running in a way that we're comfortable with, I would really like to invite council, and we would like to call a special meeting if everybody would like to come. I'd really like for all of you to come and see the investment that you have made in Oconee County Rock Quarry. It is truly an unbelievable sight. Sewer South, of course, we just touched on this under the economic development topic. But I think a portion of what we want to say here is for the completed projects for general government, not just the drive for economic development, is this council should be very proud of themselves. Very, very proud. I've been in Oconee County almost 20 years, and we have had a very poor relationship with the Sewer Authority and the Sewer Commission previous to them being the authority. I think the dedication and decency and integrity that this council has shown in shaking hands and having conversations is paving the path for us to have a potential partnership even, with the Sewer Authority that was unforeseeable 5 years ago. So thank you all for let's moving forward in something finally. Moving forward finally, we purchased property on East Main Street in Westminster. I came into the administrator's office when we moved down there. I want to say that was 2016 or so. And the number one priority at that time, and I believe it was left over from the year before actually, was the relocation and expansion for Westminster Magistrate Facility. We will be taking this out for design bid in the near future. You all know that we purchased this property. It was a former church. And here is our Honorable Will Derrick and his staff at the future home of our magistrate court there. Ongoing initiatives for general government include the plat scanning and the Register of Deeds. We have made an 18% improvement in that in 1 year. That's a pretty big number if you consider the number of plats. Liddell just highlighted the fact that our fees in the Register of Deeds has increased significantly, which means that the filings have increased significantly. And planning and county development completed projects include the comp plan, and of course, we just had a highlight from that from the Planning Commission, the Highway 123 corridor plan, and ongoing initiatives include the Bounty Land corridor plan and a countywide corridor plan implementation. This came out of the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting last meeting? For us to do the countywide implementation plan, or the meeting before. We are very close to having a presentable plan to bring back to Planning and Economic Development Committee, working very closely with planning staff and the Planning Commission. And solid waste, which is a priority for everyone. Recycling and solid waste. We did public outreach, recycling education. We still have staff member working hand in hand with Keep Oconee Beautiful for litter reduction. Speaking of litter reduction, Sheriff, I saw two more since the last time I saw you and said, everyone thinks we don't pick up litter. Mr. Davis mentioned it a while back in a council meeting. It almost seems like somebody said it, now it appears everywhere. I have seen twice since the last time I saw you, more litter pickups. And they're picking up litter in the rain. And litter in the rain has to be a horrible thing, horrible. So we continue to do our outreach, recycling education, our solid waste disposal evaluation report. Mr. McCall's committee did receive a request at a special council meeting in November. And we are looking at handling almost 100 tons of waste per year. We have spec'd out the glass crushing alternative plant. Some of the specs that came back were not what we thought would be in line for what we were looking for, so we are continuing to evaluate that. Click. 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 Any questions or comments?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
This 18% improvement in plat scanning, is that just counting the new plats that are being recorded, or is this going back to the old plats that haven't been recorded?
That's the ones that have not been recorded. Yes, sir. All new plats are already scanned and recorded. So we're going back to, what was the year, 1987? Yeah, we're starting at 87 and moving forward.
Well, I know them by A1 through A600 and so.
Right.
And you had got them to, you started at like let's say 160 forward. What about A1 to 160? Has that been scanned yet?
I don't know the book number, sir.
Okay.
I would be happy to talk to the Register of Deeds for you, but
I'll talk to them. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, their 18% improvement plan was a departmental number they reported back to us.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions or comments?
Amanda,
Yes,
I
sir.
just want to thank you and your staff, all the employees, and the public in general for making 2019, I think, a very successful year. A lot of initiatives that we've been working on since I've been on council. And have finally, we've either finished some of those projects or finished plans for those projects or begun plans to complete those projects. And so there's always more work to do.
Always.
And so I want to thank you for your leadership and thank your staff for getting these things rolling. I feel very good about the future here. And as John said, we will see downturns, but I feel like we're on solid ground now.
Thank you, sir.
With that, so thank you.
Thank you. A lot of these are ongoing projects, you know, I mean, it's not like we have a one-and-done plan for Utica. It's not like we have a one-and-done plan for a capital vehicle replacement. When I met with department heads this year, you know, where everyone is like, okay, we need to address vehicles. We need to do this, we need to do that. We're going to evolve. It's something, government's slow by design. Government is slow by design. Now, do we wish we could snap our fingers and make things better? Absolutely. But as long as we keep making momentum, however slow, even Judge Derrick, he literally said to me, I didn't think this day was coming. And we bought a church that may even in fact need to be demolished, depending on what the studies come back as. But we made a step, and it may not be done in the next budget year, it may not be done in the next calendar year, but as long as we keep making steps forward, we're moving in the right direction.
On the opportunity zones, I know y'all are moving forward to marketing that. Is there an initiative that y'all have been talking about on how we can market our specific areas moving forward and push?
Yes, we are, actually, Annie, what is that, 2 weeks from now?
The lunch meeting?
Mhm.
Yes, it's 2 weeks from now.
So we are meeting with federal delegates to help get our opportunity zones promoted. There are opportunity zone plans that were designated, marketing plans for the state of South Carolina that Janet Hartman and I had reviewed extensively before her departure. But at that time, the financial groundwork for the opportunity zones, there was still a lot of uncertainty with investment, how long they would have to keep the investment, if it could be turned over. That marketing plan was great for putting, hey, we're out here, but it's not anything that we could market to investment companies where we would want to do a partnership, SSRB, SSRC. Anything that the county could do is even a special revenue tax credit area. Those things have become clearer from the federal side now, and is it Ms. Gibbs from Senator Scott's office?
Danielle?
Yes, yes. So we will be meeting in the next few weeks with them to figure out what is the best way the county can participate in marketing this on our own. You go to Google and look at opportunity zones, the first 9 or 10 entries has nothing to do with government. It's with investment brokerages or real estate firms. So we don't want to get ourselves in the position where we pretend that we're not a government. We still have to remain to be a government. So we do need to market, but we do need to do it in a way that best fits the statute structure and need of our own government.
It seems to me, looking at where the market's headed in the next couple of years, there's gonna be a lot of people looking to put capital gains in a specific place rather than worrying about losing them in a downward turn. So to me, it's gonna free up a lot more cash areas in there, and I know, some people out there may think that's funny that opportunity zones are better in a worse economy, but I think they are. I think it will turn to where it's a safe place to put their gains and protect those gains through there, and it's a great program for us. So I appreciate, what y'all are doing, moving forward with that. 'Cause
And
I
our
think, to me,
opportunity zones are diverse. Ours are diverse. So, the entirety of Utica is in an opportunity zone, which means you wouldn't have to have a $1 billion investment. You could have a much smaller investment and still get a return on that. So having that capital gains turnaround, it's something we experienced here in the early 2000s when we had a lot of people moving from Grosse Pointe Woodswood, Michigan, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, when the larger automotive manufacturers in the mid and up northeast came, their investment here is very clear 20 years later.
The OITP new road that's coming in on the side, the one thing I know y'all are still working on is the runoff that has been experienced on properties next to there. I know we're still working to that. Not only in that road, but certain other roads as we've dealt with the amount of water that we've got coming from, this road or other roads. Is there a way that we can identify through roads and bridges, and this kind of goes into what Mr. Hart's talking about, is a grading scale of our roads? And I know I kind of went
have
off
one.
from the OITP, but that way we as council can look and say, are we keeping up with that? Because it's kind of, to me, like a capital vehicle replacement plan is, people are demanding, our citizens are demanding us fix the roads. And half of those roads they want us to fix are state roads. But from a standpoint on county, are we staying on top, or is there something that we need to do to look at allotting more money towards those roads on there? So, we get citizens that call us about, hey, this road is bad. And I've been out there and that road is really bad. And, how we even own that road at any given time, or, some of them seem like driveways, but we own them. And so as a council, I want to make it a priority that we're taking care of what we have.
We do have a road priority list, and our road department director just walked in. Hi, Kyle. And I'm not making excuses, I'm just gonna state a fact. We've had more rain in the past 2 years than we've had in the past 10. There's no way to prepare for this. Mr. Elliott can attest, bless his heart, he's got the most terrain in his district. There's runoff, there's mud, there's gravel washing. I mean, there's water running off of flat surfaces at this point. We are inundated with rain. That is not an excuse, it's just a matter of fact. We do have a road priority sheet, we do have a road maintenance schedule. The roads that we see that are bad, you know, what do we have on paving contract? How many? Pop quiz. Sorry.
About 80, yeah, about 80 right now that we're working through.
Yes, so the road paving schedule is what, 7 months, 8 months behind?
The
Okay.
last pavement contract is behind us now.
Okay, we're a little behind on the road paving contract. So, and we do bid that out, you know, that's not something we can do in-house. In-house, we do the best that we can, obviously, and we do have a road priority list. Now, for us to bring that road priority list to council or back to transportation committee so that we can walk you through how we do that and so that everyone understands that process, be happy to. We probably haven't been transparent enough with that, with y'all, so that when you do get calls, you do know there is a system. When you get calls, of course, please send them to us. It's unfair for a citizen to call a council member and a council member not have any way to figure out where that road is, what priority is. I mean, we have staff that takes care of people. We get, I don't know how many calls we've had in the past 4 days. We had a ton of calls yesterday that were left from the weekend with the immediate and fun snow. Thank God that was on a Saturday though. But yes, I'd actually like to bring that forward so that everyone can see the process, how we work it out, and for everybody to have access to the list and how we keep it up.
And I wasn't complaining. I just want to make sure that if the funding mechanism is there for what the demands are. So, that was the biggest reason. I feel like we're going to buy gondolas for some of these places now to get in and out of.
Yes.
Just because of the amount of rain. So we're behind because of the weather, not because of the lack of. I just want to make sure.
Yes, sir.
that If the funding method is where it's supposed to be, then I'm happy with that. If it's not, then we need to review that. So I think coming to a transportation committee meeting, if Mr. Hart is good with that for his committee, you know, that would be a great thing to move forward and have some, you know, a lot more public transparency in that on how we grade these roads moving forward. So, thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
But I'm
for
gonna twist your words up a little bit because I kept hearing funding. Does that mean we get more funding for roads?
Oh, we have problems and we need to fix problems, and that's what we have to look at is what's the method of fixing those problems.
Okay.
If the funding is not there to fix what the citizens are telling us to fix.
Right.
Then, yes, I do believe that we need more funding for those issues.
We can always use more funding. Some of the funding, though, doesn't necessarily have to go toward the road. Fixing a road is a manpower issue, it's an equipment issue, it's a time issue, it's a right-of-way issue, it's an engineering issue, it's a bridges and culvert issue, it's a stormwater runoff issue. So it's a very complicated and tedious process. It's not like we can just go out there. And, you know, I worked here in the old days when we really did just go out there and just kind of flatten off roads and gravel them again. But the terrain and the expectation of citizens now with more focus on environmental friendliness and responsibility has made us step up, and I think that's a good thing. We will look at the funding. I don't know that we're short funding for doing roads. It may be just a matter of being able to get out and do the roads. They do work a lot on roads. And roads is one of those things, you know, Oconee County has 624 miles or so. 660. I say that wrong every time. I'm 20 miles off every time. And that's a lot of road and a lot of different terrain and a lot of different areas in Oconee County. And of course, you all know how big the county is. And that's not an excuse, sir. It is not an excuse. But they do work hard, and from time to time, a road is going to fall behind. And from time to time, there's going to be an incident like today. We know that we've got roads that need work today. We know that we've got a culvert that needs to be replaced today, but we can't even move equipment to get stabilized to go do any kind of work like that today because we would create a runoff.
Are we discussing these issues right now?
Are we ready
What
to
are
look
we-
at
what are we-
2020?
Well, that's, I just didn't know if we're getting into
Yeah.
these issues now, or if that's the next, if it is, that's fine with me, I just didn't know, because I was gonna ask a question about transportation, but.
Yeah, as we, you know, what I was just touching on is anything with any kind of 2019 project that was reviewed right then, if there's something that came forward in your mind, I think it's just we're open conversation, so I don't, and we're moving straight into the 2020 strategic goal, so I'm fine with that. Go with it.
I was gonna say, with regard to, I mean, we hear a lot about, you know, going to these meetings. Association of Counties talking about the state roads and what's happening there, where the gas tax money is going, where the state DOT is putting that money. It's not into, our roads, it's going into interstates, it's going into larger, highways. It's not being used on rural roads. Or it's a very small percentage, it's a drop in the bucket. And further to that point, it's my understanding that when the economic downturn really hit this country post 2008, we didn't put, you know, that seemed to be the right time for the feds to invest in infrastructure, put people to work, doing projects like the Civilian Conservation Corps did back after the Great Depression. But they didn't. And so we have, they paid people to sit at home and do nothing. And so now, a lot of those paving contractors and DOT contractors either went out of business or sold off all their equipment and downsized, lost a lot of trained workforce. So now that the state and the feds, hopefully, putting more money back into transportation infrastructure, we don't have the contractors or the labor or the expertise to do these jobs. Or we do, but it's very few groups that can do this. So now, those that can do it have their pick of the litter on projects, and they're charging a lot of money to do these projects, which is driving up the costs for the state, and then that just trickles on down to us. That's my understanding of the situation. And so I say all that to get to this. Does it bear consideration by this council to see if we ought to look at bringing some of these functions in-house so we're not subject to what I would call unrealistic market conditions that are that are, you know, stuff rolls downhill, and it seems like we're the ones, as was mentioned, we got 80 projects that are going out for bid, but we've seen bids, you know, with our roads, industrial park roads, come back way higher than we budgeted, and that's something we need to talk about. I'm not looking to grow government, but we got to do something. These roads are a very basic, fundamental function of government, and it's an issue, and it's going to cost us a lot of money, and everybody's behind on it. Everybody, the state, the feds, local governments, all behind on transportation infrastructure. So that's my soapbox. I'll get off now.
If I may, just briefly though, the C-Fund Committee here in Oconee County is very county strong. I have to give credit where credit's due. We get an allocation more than $1 million a year, and they are for local roads. Now, there are other large roadways that the gas tax does cover, but our local C-Fund Committee carries a pretty big stick and is not afraid to yield it from time to time.
But I mean, $1 million a year, when you look at,
That's our portion.
yeah, when you look at.
That's just our portion.
Sure,
There's
well-
still state, there's municipal.
I know, but it's either not enough to take care of the issues, or there's not enough contractors to create a value, because if we're having to use all that money on one project, whereas in the past it might have covered 3, because there's no competition,
Right,
So-
and I'm sure you drive from here to Greenville, you see that county governments are working on roads, state governments are working on roads, and federal governments are working on roads. Well, all three of those entities have the same pool of contractors. So the contractors really don't want to do a $400,000 job when they can do a $3 million job.
Right.
So you're totally right there.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with this, Katie.
I'm not blaming anybody locally. I'm not blaming our
Oh,
CPC
yeah.
committee.
No, I just
I'm
want to
saying
give some
it's
credit
a
to them.
global issue
It
in
is.
this country.
It is.
Infrastructure, bridges,
It is.
roads, not in good shape. I'm not saying our county roads we take pretty good care of when we can actually get out there and work on it when it's not, there's not a flood going on. But I'm just stating the issue the way I see it and
Absolutely.
asking for input or thoughts on a resolution.
Well, I don't know how much gondolas are, but I understand we do have a county employee that from time to time has to pester another council member for the use of a John boat to get home. So, yes, it is very real to us as well.
No, I think the paving issue is huge. I know when everybody was, actually excited about passing a gas tax from the state, what I heard is everybody said it wasn't enough. Fix the problem and move forward. And obviously the amount of water that we've gotten right now is revealing a lot of the actual issues of the road bed itself that has been ignored. And even some of the new paving that we've gotten done, the way it was done, it shows if it wasn't done to what I would feel is the right way, some of those are starting to already let loose and create additional potholes for a road that was paved 5 months ago. So, it had to be relined 3 times. So those are some things that the state, it's not county, the state, our county lines are straight. So, but no, this was a state road that's traveled a lot, and those are some issues when they come out. And I don't know if it's an inspection issue or what moving forward is, and some of it's, it always comes back on the county because they want us to fix it because it occurred inside the county. So anything that occurs inside the walls of the county is our issue. So, maybe we need to be a little bit more, when we see an issue like that comes up during construction, to at least kind of raise a red flag and say, hey, can somebody go check this out because it's not looking like it should. So, anyway. So let's move forward to 2020. And what I'd like, if everybody's okay with this, to kind of talk about, your strategic plan and your goals and things that you have, and touch on things that are, can be a state level, but also be county level as well. And the first thing I wanted to bring up, because I know this is on a lot of people's plate, so that way we talk about it as a group. The sewer expansion that is going on right now in exits 1 and 2, from the last meeting that the Joint Regional Sewer Authority had, the completion date was estimated to be the end of 21. So I'm also one of these that I try to put 6 months on the end of something, so let's call it the middle of 22. So we're going to see some interest begin to occur down on the interstate area. So I know the planning is still moving forward with there. There's some initial designs, and I know there's been, where's the sewer lines running? And it's very simple that obviously anywhere down around exits 1 and exit 2 is going to have access to the sewer. And that's the easiest answer that I can get to there. But I also, and this would be one of my priorities would be exits 3 and 4. I know exit 3 is not necessarily an exit, however, I do refer to that as the bridge that crosses over the interstate there. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up so we can talk about the 85 sewer expansion and just kind of open that up for discussion. But that was one of my top priorities because of the availability and the topography of the land with exits 3 and 4. Again, exit 3 does not exist, but it is the bridge is what I'm referring to. So I'll open that up for discussion on where that stands in your priorities and discussion.
I think we ought to take a break.
You need, okay. You want to do a 5-minute break? Let's do that. And then we'll come back. All right, let's, come back to order. We were talking on the 2020 strategic plan, and I began to talk about, just because I know it's one of the priorities out there, and then after we finish this discussion, we'll kind of go through. But we were talking about, the time frame for the sewer lines that are running in there now as the archaeological survey has been completed, and they're stating that the exits 1 and 2 will have sewer by the end of '21. So I just stated that I always like to put 6 months on the end of stuff, based on, especially with the weather that we've seemed to be having now. So, one of the priorities that I had was continuing to move sewer, since we are in the process of putting it to 1 and 2, and that is funded to have sewer to exits 3, which again is the bridge, and exit 4, which actually does exist. And I just wanted to open that up for discussion for that priority.
I think that's a priority, and I think we can do it. I'm not sure it's gonna take internal resources within a manager's purview, but absolutely.
As we have discussed before, the selling of Project Aztec, I think that money should be used to tear down the Fairplay School, help build a new fire department, extend all those sewer lines to exit 4 and exit 3, and you can count exit 3 as my next project, is to put access sewer lines that will reach into Fairplay, that will reach out from the main source to exit 2, and to take exit 1 up to the top of the hill to the state parks recreation area. And I think that's the way I've got it figured, that'll wipe out all that money.
If I can just note for the record that any sale of asset with utilizing economic development funds would have to be put back into economic development unless council wanted to override where that funding source is allocated back to. And I believe, Mr. Root, that would take 3 readings and a public hearing, correct? You'd have to do a budget amendment essentially, I think.
Do a budget amendment for that. There are some situations you can do this on one, but I think for that it would be 3.
I would just like to remind the council that some things are executive session material that are not supposed to be discussed till after they are put forth. So, any other discussion on that priority? So what I'll do is now we'll start. I don't know who would like to start. Mr. Hart, if you want to start with any other priorities that you have.
Well, I have a priority of Duke Power and High Falls expansion there. But some of this has already been covered. And I'd like for different amenities to be added to all the county parks because of the draw for more campers, more visitors, and tourism.
What kind of amenities?
What was the golf course, the
Like putt-putt?
Frisbee golf?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
walking trails?
Any other?
Well, I have a list here.
Yep, go with it.
I think we need to do something to help our smaller communities, especially Salem and their water line. I don't know exactly what Fairplay or Townville or those areas need, but we need to check and see what they need. Even Long Creek, if there's something that the county can do to help them, I think we need to do that. Next, I have county help. The free and low-cost clinics. They got the mobile clinics. One was in Salem last week, during this monsoon we had, and they had very few participating, but I called one of the council people in, Salem with the city, and they said they had canceled different events because of the rain, it was so much. And we have 7,000 veterans that can be helped by keeping them from having to go either to Columbia, Greenville, or Anderson, because they can have blood, work done here and different tests done at this clinic without having to go out of the county. My last item is recycling. And I noticed that Ms. Brock said something about checking out the validity of glass, recycling glass. And I know that we've got a good program going on the cardboard and paper, plastic, metals, wood. We have a, I don't know exactly the legal name that they call it, the machine that'll take concrete and make gravel out of it. We can use that for construction items, and wood can be either ground up to where it can be used for something else. So that's basically what I have as my 5 priorities.
On that top priority, without, again, going into executive session material, you talked about the Fair Play School as being your top priority. Is that what I was understanding? The
Yes, sir.
removal of that?
Well, all of those sort of blend together. I mean, as each one is accomplished, another one would come in. Talking about the sewer line, we're basically putting in the main trunk. We're gonna need some, access lines to reach out. And when I say an exit 3 could be considered an access line, or it could be considered the main trunk. But if you could reach out to it, and, exit 2, where they have the manhole at exit 2, we need, an access line up to the route, or the exit 2 to the main road up there. We need, for those buildings up there, I know there's several businesses just waiting to get access to start, building new buildings in that area. And I think exit 1, I believe that the state park is looking forward to having a sewer connection for themselves.
But the school itself, the removal of that, the reason for that, is that just blight?
Well,
I
it's,
know you talked about the fire station as well, but if the fire station's a priority, we could, purchase land and move it somewhere else rather than,
well, the community itself, it would be an advantage to them because, as you heard the chief, for Fair Play say that was the community and it was ISO and they'd like to get rid of it and put a nice building there to replace it. And that's, and far as, Ms. Brock said they had some hiccups about it, those can be resolved because the people that own that is willing to give it to the fire department. The fire department does not want to take it right now because of the asbestos.
that's why they want to give it, correct?
Correct.
Well,
So,
that's
Sorry, I
part
thought
of
that was
it,
for me.
yes. But I mean, they something like 4.5 acres there that they're giving away.
that, not just giving it away,
They're gonna give it to the fire department.
With a liability.
with the liabilities.
Yeah, the environmental
So there's
liability.
about 40 properties in Oconee County that are willing to be given away because of the issues surrounding the property itself. So the main reason for it, is it blight in that community? Is that your main reason for removing that? Because we don't own the building, just so we understand. We don't have any liabilities to the building, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it would mainly be because of a blight concern.
Yes, it would,
Okay,
it's a blight on the community.
okay. And with fire, Ms. Brock, with fire stations, do we know, I know the original construction of that fire station obviously is built right on the corner. So there is not a lot of room for growth. I know we don't normally build fire stations unless we're creating fire stations as we have done. So there's not necessarily a built plan for that fire station. Is that correct?
No, sir. With the passing of the 2010 fire plan, there were 10 substations to be constructed. The last one, as I had mentioned previously, is the Bountyland substation. With the growth that's occurred in the Bountyland area, I do think we should look at alternative locations, which may implicate we have to rename that because it is out on bond money, and that was what it was for. But each of the 17 independent districts receive station expense money, which is $60,000 per year in direct funding. And the county, of course, does buy apparatus, equipment, replaces trucks, supplies trainings, PPE, and that sort of thing. PPE is personal protective gear. But to my knowledge, there's not been a plan to replace that fire station. Now, if that's a priority of council, of course, it could be accomplished in a matter of years. Yes, sir.
When I was talking with the fire chief, he said something about, that you had mentioned that they needed a ladder truck down there. So,
We may in the future, yes, sir,
Yeah.
we did mention that.
and he's wanting to know where he can house that. And two, if there are motels built in that area that would need a ladder truck for rescues, so.
Yes, sir,
That's-
we had discussed that when we had the fair play meeting at the First Presbyterian Church, that as this sewer line comes to closer to completion, the community may want to start to take into consideration what type of growth they want and don't want. And of course, everybody wants a motel down there, and I think that would be a great asset to those, especially 1 and 2. With that, we would have to increase, the county would have to look at increasing the ability to fight fires in structures that are the size of like Project Epic. You know, we bought that used ladder truck year before last when we knew the Epic was coming and the enormity of the building being protected there. So yes, it is something we would have to take into consideration.
And one of the alternatives, Kiwi Fire Department has 2 different locations. We've got a man location and a location where they store an extra fire truck. Could have an extra location where we store the ladder truck, which is not gonna be used as much as the rest of the fire trucks.
And that could be shared between Fairplay and South Union. I mean, there could be a place between those 2 fire departments that would be within the 7-mile ISO circle, which the primary ISO circle is 5 miles, but you could do an extension equipment facility or equipment extension facility. I can't remember exactly what they're called. But there could be like a bay, a metal building with a bay that could house a ladder truck in between those 2, so it would be accessible by both of those 2 districts.
Mr. Elliott, you want to start on yours real quick?
Sure. So there are 2 of them that are no priority. The big thing I say, but the 2 that's already been mentioned, one, of course, is the Bountyland Fire Department. And I really believe it should be located nearest the largest population area. So we'd have to study whether it is, maybe you already know. The other one that's been mentioned is increased unassigned fund balance. Continue to do that, even if we do it this year, we need to do more. The next one that's been mentioned, Mr. Hart mentioned, would be close the Salem Water Loop line, which would expand, allow the Cliffs community to expand. Also, it would expand the water service and increase better water pressure for the existing customers. I know we're not in the business of doing this, but we could help them do this. I know we've tried to get grants. We've been unsuccessful twice. So maybe there's something else. And Mr. Davis has mentioned some things to me, but that's one of my priorities. Relieving the traffic congestion around Kiwi School Road and South Cove Park Road. I know Ms. Brock's looked into that. I think we need to continue to study that and working with the South Carolina Department of Transportation. Once they get up that new development, it's gonna be more chaotic than it is today. And I mean, I was going through there just the other day on a Saturday and tried to get out of that CVS onto Kiwi School Road, and it was impossible.
It is impossible. It is.
One thing that I think we're having a problem with right now is RV parks. I think we need to have an RV park ordinance, study what we need to do. Right now, I think there's some that aren't clean and sanitary in the conditions they're in, and we need to provide safe, and this is one of the last places a lot of people go before they're homeless, and we need to provide a safe place that is sanitary, safe, and is clean. And I think that's a growing opportunity in the county that I see. We did a great job on getting the grants on the Cooney County Airport. But I think we need to expand that will keep going forward with constructing hangars, additional hangars, and possibly expand the airport runway. That's an economic development thing. I mean, all large corporations want to fly their jets in and out. Clemson University continues to have a great football team, and we're lucky that that's going on. But that's putting, as we know, demand on our airport, especially on the football game weekends, and we need to capitalize on that. Through the sale of our gas, fuel oil, and that kind of thing. And that's all I have.
Mr. McCollum?
Everything I got on there concerns the core basic needs of the county, public safety, fire, health, and welfare of the citizens. First goal is for recycling. And we keep saying we patting ourselves on the back, oh, we doing this and we doing that. I think Horry County lead the pack at 85%. Now, you pat yourself on the back all you want to. We could do better. We're gonna have to do better, because sooner or later, a change in the government on a federal level, state level, we could be coming running back in here, and it's gonna affect us. Oh, heck, the commode stopped up. Now what are we gonna do with all the garbage? You can't keep burying it. You're gonna have to do something with it. All these people say, oh, it's too expensive to recycle. You're gonna have to. You got no choice. The other thing is, we're with Clemson and MUSC is the healthcare. Now, I got blasted in the paper for wanting to waste money. Well, how about the 7,000 veterans? That's 7,000 we know of. They're registered with the VA. A bunch of them ain't even registered with the VA. We got the sheriff's department, county employees retiring. There's a gap. They got no insurance till they get 65 and go with Medicare. And all the mill workers, they got their retirement accounts rated when the mill's closed. All this, we owe it to our citizens. Next thing is we need more deputies for the sheriff's department. You say, why? You call the sheriff. They ain't sitting on their hands, and they're spread so darn thin. They dealing with the opioid, the pill clinics are closed over in Greenville. So everybody's stealing, whatever else they can. You can't, my brother and I have spent thousands on security, digital security cameras. You gotta lock your house all the time. Ain't the sheriff's fault, it's all this riffraff. They gotta get their pills, gotta get something, and they're gonna do it. The other thing is Mr. Kane briefly touched on this, people sitting on their hands at home don't wanna work. And we got a large population, they only show up as on the unemployment rolls because they ain't looking for no job. Somehow we gotta think of breaking the cycle of drug dependence in a lifestyle where you don't wanna do anything, and say, if we can get these people out of this lifestyle, then we can increase more working in the county, more productivity. When that happens, the crime goes down, it eases up the load on the sheriff's department. The other thing is, we, on the fee in lieu ofs, we gotta revisit this. We can't, fee in lieu ofs ought to be given to industry coming in, not developers wanting to develop some big housing project, and then it comes back and bites us when they, after they done left. Oh, by the way, y'all gotta have another fire truck. Who's gonna pay for it? Oh, it's people of District One, my district, and y'all gonna pay for it. I done left. And those that would think this ain't happening, all of y'all got the copy of from the Charleston News and Courier, the bridge to nowhere. That's what happens when you bend over to developers. And don't forget, at least all of us, never forget, we work for the people that put us here. The richest tourist in the world doesn't vote for anonymous. The people that we are struggling to pay their taxes, the people that are struggling for health care, those are the people we work for. Thank you.
I'll do next for District 4. Talk a little bit about priorities for sewer. One of the other things that I wanted to bring up is the industrial property in and around Westminster. A lot of that, you know, when you talk about the actual cost, and I'm not talking about some of the issues that we've talked about with brownfield and pollution issues, there's properties over there that can be had with, whether it's Rail Park or whether it's the old building, the old Jansen buildings and things like that, that can be beneficial. I feel like that area is an untapped workforce, kind of what we have talked about in trying to get people back to work and, you know, in the communities that they once worked in. These are smaller properties that I see that are actually becoming more beneficial to growing industry that grow into hopefully larger things, but just some thoughts that I had on those. The Bountyland Sewer expansion, the meeting that we were at, Joint Regional Sewer Authority, Mr. Aliazer said that was one of the #1 areas that continues to request for growth and sewer in that area. With that, Bountyland area needs to completely change the traffic patterns in there. The South Cove area that's became so popular, we're putting a lot of large equipment down there. That is a state road, correct?
It is.
I know it is. But I just want to get confirmation on that. But we really need to really think about South Cove and expanding that, especially out on the end. It's not an issue to expand and make a railway safer with Norfolk Southern, especially continuing to get traffic moving across their crossings. That has got to be either 2 or 3 of the busiest intersections. I don't know. I know it's in the top 5 of the busiest intersections in Oconee County. And so we've had some corrections with the turn lights and stuff on the 28 area, but coming on and off of that Bountyland area, we need to be proactive in that, or it's called us right now, but we need to make a change in that. Speaking of fire department, Bountyland Fire Department as well, but I want to discuss about, my feeling is looking at OITP having a fire department as well. I know every fire department is a cost associated with that. With the amount of traffic that we're seeing that has the potential to continue to expand in OITP, when the nearest fire department, if we put it out at Bountyland, you're looking at right on that outskirts of 4 miles. You're looking at West Union, which is the other service, and which is right at 4 miles. So my thing is I agree with what you're saying about Bountyland. If we look at having a fire station around the OITP area, you can actually take that Bountyland station and move it more into your community, which would actually give, there was about 3 or 4 different roads that I saw that, the 3 different places that we've looked at Bountyland, including where we had originally looked at it, that still didn't reach that 5-mile area. So just a thought that I wanted to bring up for discussion on that, what the cost associated with that, but I feel like if we're outside of those windows and we have that industry right there, I know they have their own fire protection internal, but the amount of traffic that we're putting in that park in that area, we're 4 miles away.
And it would be a great place to provide backup. You know, Highway 11 is a major corridor. You can get to Salem quick, you can get to Fairplay quick. You can get to South Union quick. If the fire truck's on 11 and they have their fire engines and sirens on, they're pretty visible from far away. I wouldn't suggest that they go at high speed, but it's a large intersection or a large interchange in Oconee County. There are a couple of lots that Andy and I even discussed where they're not actually prime real estate. One of the areas is smaller than we think a business would want to put a footprint there, so having a station at OITP, not to mention it could potentially enhance the program that they're offering at Tri-County Tech for the firefighter service. And we also have a program through Hamilton Career Center before they get to the tech level classes, which would allow us to potentially either form an intergovernmental agreement with the municipality that may or may not be annexing properties closest to Bountyland. There was discussion about the city of Seneca annexing where the new patio homes were coming in, and they'd be foolish not to, and that's a tax revenue for them. But we've never sat down and had that conversation. I think we could kill 2 birds with a stone and a quarter. I mean, I won't narrow it down to 1 stone, but I do think that we could probably kill 2 birds with a stone and a quarter. And if we had one on both sides of the Norfolk Southern track there, the track would not be an impediment for fire service.
Cool.
We do have, 426, 456? 400 plus thousand that is still earmarked for the Bountyland substation construction. And remember, at the time that the Bountyland was presented, it was originally presented to be shared with the city of Seneca, so that is not something that is new. We knew that the fire response and emergency vehicle response outside of the city limit was primarily in the Bountyland area for the city of Seneca. So that was to be shared from the get-go. So it's nothing new that we're talking about that. But if we could share the expense and have a more residential incline fire service response on the, what is that, eastern side of the railroad, or northern side rather, and then having even if it was a substation at OITP on that lower lot that's small, I believe that it would be an asset to the business and industry there. I think it's possible.
I just wanted to bring that before. I've just sat back and thought about and looked at that 5-mile circle of Bountyland. And I've looked at the area that's unprotected that we're trying to get out there toward the Ebenezer area. And then I've looked at the unprotected area around Twin View that we're trying to get. And you put those two together and there's places that you can get it, but you're right on that outskirts. And to me, because of the growth that we're seeing at OITP, and I think the growth that you're continuing to see out toward the Ebenezer community area down that way, I think we'd be, I think you're going to miss out on 5 or 6 roads that are going to be outside of that 5 mile. And that puts them in a extremely high protection class. So I think if we really thought about that a little differently, I think it's better for the citizens, period. So.
I think anytime we can recuperate money and have a partnership with the municipality instead of duplicating a service, whether that be, same thing with Westminster. We share a fire service facility with them as we speak. And that's been something that's a benefit to the city and to the county with us sharing the expense of that.
Because I think you're going to have a lot of growth and continue to have a lot of growth out there. I think that fire service has really been one of the dampers in a lot of those areas out there. I know people sit back and think that that's not a big deal, but when they learn they're in an unprotected fire class because they're over 5 miles and they hear those insurance premiums, it does hamper growth. It really does. Water, internet continues to hamper growth. One other thing that I want to bring up is a built-in salary increases for county employees. So we're trying to get back to what I feel like is a competitive, salaries that we have for our employees. But it got so far behind that there's nothing built in. So it was always put on there. It's very similar to things that, kind of like the magistrate, that was continued ignored, and it just kind of fell off. It was a priority, but then it fell off. But I would like to see 1.5% built in each year, so you don't get so far behind. Because 1.5% just keeps up with the ever-changing of that. And I know, from our employees, that the ability to retain good employees is the success of a county. And I know that 1.5% is not a lot, but at least it's in there, so you kind of know where it is. So, you don't have to do 4%, and you could probably do that 5 more times and still be behind. But I wanted to see that in there. Removal and sale of older vehicles that are still in here. I know we're going and doing assessments of that. I know Ms. Brock's working through that to see what we have out there, because we're replacing a lot of vehicles. The last thing I want to see is we continue to hang on to some of those that, we need to get rid of just because it's just an extra vehicle.
And with that, if I can
Yes,
just note, I just want to make a note. We did, when we established this fund, it is a replacement fund. That was the name of the fund to begin with, because we didn't want to have a stockpile of spares or older vehicles. But having met with staff, we'll probably be 2 years into this before we start before there's any capture of liquidating vehicles off of the fleet. Because we had 2 years where we increased staff by more than 11. We had 1 year where, I know the sheriff is here, you had 6 employees hired, but only 4 vehicles purchased. So, we continually pull the better of the bad and put them back in service. And, I thought originally when we bought the vehicles, okay, we're gonna get 8 off the road. We're not. We're gonna get 3 off the road. It's gonna be slow, but I totally get that as a priority. But I was really surprised at how many staff members that we added compared to vehicles purchased over the last 5 to 7 years. And the ones you would really think absolutely have to be off are the very ones that are running like absolute workhorses. Vehicles will surprise you. I think one of the most impressive vehicles we have, and I shouldn't do this because it's definitely not a commercial for Dodge, but we have a Dodge Durango that has been through hell and gone, and it is still running like a champ. It's ugly, but it runs.
Airport improvements, continuing to push forward with that. The road that runs alongside it, I'd like to see that relocated. They'd give us some room for hangars and everything on that side. So just kind of always continue to move forward with there. I appreciate that priority coming forth on there. Utica is one of those things that we have to continue to focus on, and I am very grateful to see a focus on the Utica area. I think the Seneca Rail Park is really going to assist in helping move forward in that Utica area. I know we're purchasing a lot of some properties and stuff in there to lower some of the cost of those. I know Mr. Kane has sat there and harped on Utica for a number of years, so your administration is continuing to actually come up with ways and plans to do that as well. So that's always an emphasis and will be an emphasis. Solid waste, we need to come up with a plan. We've talked about things on there from the incineration to just because we can bury it for the next 20, 25 years. Is that the best method? Is that the best thing for the environment, or is there other avenues for things out there that can assist with that? Because it seems to me that's going to always be an ongoing cost. It's going to always increase. So I looked at the 3 different avenues that we could, whether it's Homer, Georgia, Abbeville, or Greenville, and it's, we're good for 20 years. We're good for 20 years. Well, to me, we need to do something better. What happens in that 20 years? So that to me is something that we need to put, that is an expensive priority. It may not be a 2020, 2021 priority, but it really needs to be studied, because as we have some very large projects coming off, the courthouse, the jail, things like that, council really needs to consider looking at a way to hold our solid waste in-house and not by burying it. So, those are my things moving forward. Mr. King?
Mr. Davis, yes, the top of my list, once again, Utica. I have revitalization written down, but really, I was just asking the sheriff, if he remembered how many people, or, I don't know if they were murdered, but, it's a legal definition. There were at least, we think, 2 homicides in Utica in 2019. Beyond that, probably many more attempted. Property crimes, numerous property crimes, numerous crimes against persons, assaults, batteries, those type of things, drugs. It's a huge issue. It's a very dangerous situation. We're making progress, and I really appreciate Ms. Brock and her efforts, and this council and their efforts in continuing to focus on Utica. But we still have a very long way to go, and it didn't happen this way overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight, but it is in an opportunity zone. There's a lot of opportunity there, but I think through our opportunity zone marketing and development, as well as the fact that the Seneca Rail Park is there, I think there's opportunity for improvement. And as Mr. McCall mentioned, we need more sheriff's deputies. I've spoken with the sheriff. We are below the benchmark for a population of our size, where we should be in law enforcement. And unfortunately,
Do you have a number? 3, 4? What are y'all thinking?
Mike, do you know exactly how many we need?
I'll have him, why don't we have him speak after we
Okay,
finish up?
okay, yeah, that'd be good. It's several, it's not just one. But I would love to see a dedicated officer or a couple of partners in Utica. I know we've applied for grants, to try to get some traffic enforcement officers. And, unfortunately, we did not. I think we may have gotten funding for one position, is that right? Or did we get?
Traffic enforcement, we
Yeah.
got 3, didn't we? One,
One, yeah. So,
and then one coming off. That's right.
This is it's affecting, there's a cycle that we talk about, getting people out of this drug use, not wanting to work. And it really is, it's a family, it's a breakdown of family, breakdown of, textile mills. When they shut down, people lost hope and turned a life of crime to get their jollies. But really, when it gets to the point where it's affecting other people, we have to act. And so I would encourage this council to stay focused and stay the course on Utica. And hopefully we'll see some improvement there. Continued focus, this is already on our list, but I just want to reiterate, identifying a location for a technology incubator with a possible library, and an Oconee Economic Alliance office. That may not sound like a priority to y'all, but we cannot continue, the economic development game is changing. There are less larger projects. There are more smaller projects. That is where most of the jobs come from, is small business in this country. It's not, Fortune 500 companies. It's small businesses. And the fact that we are literally right next door to a top 20 public research university in the country is all the more reason that we should be focused on entrepreneurial development. And we are focused on it. I think we need to be more focused on it and put more resources toward it and draw some of those professors and grad students and undergrad students from Clemson into Oconee County, where they can create businesses and create jobs here that usually are very good paying jobs, especially if they're technology based. They're also less, they're more immune to recession shocks and things that might, you know, if a car manufacturer stops building cars, that's gonna have a ripple down to all the, down the tier to all the suppliers, and there'll be layoffs and all those things. But when they're small businesses, they tend to be a little more resilient when they're technology-based. The next thing is, and this is on the list as well, it's something I've been talking about for a few years, connecting the Green Crescent Trail in Clemson to the Palmetto Trail. Why is that important? We talk about recreation, not just for tourists, but for people who live in the county. I know that does not hit the far reaches of our community, or the path wouldn't, but it does hit the population center. Most people in the county live within, I think it's 90% or so live within 10 miles of the Bountyland area. And those that live on the northern part have ample recreation opportunity. We've seen and heard what these trail systems have done with regard to revitalization in communities, with regard to health. People want to get outside and walk when they've got a safe place to do it. And for folks who may not have another mode of transportation, for them to safely be able to walk, not on the shoulder of 123 and Highway 28, but walk on a safe trail or walkway to where they need to get to is important also. So it's not, I mean, tourism's part of it, but I think it more so would serve our residents in the community. Also, I don't know that this is on here, on our list, or it is. Litter education and enforcement. Lieutenant Governor was here last week and mentioned that we're working on it, but I can assure you, I'm not throwing trash out the window. I doubt anybody in this room is. I pray that you aren't. But if you do, I pray that the sheriff catches you. Our community, and it's in the entire state, the Lieutenant Governor talked about it, it's hard to attract economic development, business, and industry to your community when it's covered in litter and trash. And this is something that probably the people who are throwing trash out the window now, unless we catch them and tar and feather them, they're probably not going to stop. So I think it's a key to educate the next generation, and I know our schools are working on that, but it's so hard to enforce. We have to focus on educating the next generation not to throw trash out the window. Not only because it destroys the environment, destroys the oceans and our ecosystem, but also it makes it hard for us to attract industry to our community and create jobs here. So that's something I would like to see a focus on. And I don't think it'll cost a whole lot of money. I think it's really a education initiative that we can do it and ask people to adopt roads around their area. And then we can maybe give out an award every quarter or something, whoever's keeping their road the cleanest. So finally, I know I hit on it earlier, I had written down corridor plan implementation because as we see this continued growth from Clemson, they've done a moratorium on certain types of development in their area. We don't want to tell the private sector what to do. We don't want to tell people what they can and can't do with their property. But we have to make sure that people can move through our community. Otherwise, they're going to start avoiding it. If we have all sorts of backlog and traffic jams and congestion in Oconee County, people are not going to, just like I don't want to move to Atlanta or Charlotte, or, people talk about Nashville, Tennessee having horrible traffic. If that begins to happen here, it's going to make it difficult for us to attract more business as well. Because unless you live right next door to your office, which I fortunately live very close, about 5 minutes, you got to drive 30 minutes or an hour. That's a lot of time over your working career that you're spending sitting in traffic. And it's not good for people who have kids. It's not good for people who have employees, or if you're a worker and you're spending 2 hours in your commute. It's not a fun life to live 5 days a week. So I believe we really need to focus on the corridor plan, not just on 123, but any of our main corridors, to make sure that people can safely get to and from where they wanna go. Clemson already, I don't know the solution there. That's gonna require probably tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to fix, and that's not something that we can take on. But let's try to prevent that from happening on our roads, in Oconee County. And so I think also the condition of roads. Our county roads, we had a big road study several years ago. Every county road was mapped and evaluated for quality. And I know we've been working through that, trying to maintain a certain level of scoring, which I think was I talked negatively about it when I was campaigning. But as I've come to appreciate it, I think it's a really neat thing that was done. It costs a couple $100,000, but if it's used properly, it will allow us to make sure that we are prioritizing the roads that need to be prioritized. That being said, we only have so much resources in our roads and bridges department between personnel and equipment. And based off the thing I said earlier, I think we need to evaluate whether it makes sense to bring more functions in-house. I don't even know if that's something that we legally can do. If we can focus more on paving in-house, or if we have to bid everything above a certain dollar amount. If that's the case, that's the case. But I do think that we need to focus on that, and maybe even partnering with some of our municipalities, some of the roads, and maybe the state, partnering with them and saying, hey, if y'all give us some money, we'll start paving these roads. Of course, I'm always hesitant to trust that based on what happened with the local government fund, but somebody's got to fix these roads. And if DOT can't do it, our citizens, our folks that elected us are still gonna call us and complain about it. And it's only fair that when they're paying money to have nice roads, they have nice roads. And again, it's another issue for economic development. It's hard to attract business to your community when your roads are full of potholes and your bridges are not in a safe condition. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I comment on the litter situation? So, last week I talked to the city, the mayor of Salem, and he was telling me a story about his trip to West Virginia with his wife. And in West Virginia, they have, number one, beautiful state, no litter. How do they do it? They have a state law that the litter fine, I can't remember the number, maybe it's $50,000. You can't pay it, get your car confiscated. It must work. He's not proposing that. He said he believes in the education situation with the litter. He wants to partner with us, the sheriff's department, anybody that he can partner with, and also spread the word to the others, Wahog, Westminster, Fairplay, everybody. Let's get together, let's form a team, work together as one county, and educate folks. I mean, there are people from my community, go up and down 130, one Saturday a month. They pick up all the litter. Doggone it, come Monday, it's littered again. Just makes me mad. We've got to do something. And, I'm not saying we firing people $50,000.
I'm okay with that, John.
But I think, because, talk about tourism, talk about anybody. They don't want traffic, and they don't want blowing plastic bags, everything around. I mean, it's just trashy looking. It reminds me of the ones around here, New Jersey. New Jersey's awful. If you've ever been to New Jersey, it's the trashiest state I've ever seen. Nobody wants to live there. Sorry if anybody's from New Jersey.
John, you're right. You're a damn pig if you throw the stuff out on the road. And I like that idea. We need to tell the legislature to get off their behinds and raise the fine for litter ought to be at least $10,000, first offense. If you're gonna get fined $10,000, darn if you're gonna throw the Hardee's wrapper or whatever wrapper out the window where it lands. And another thing, these pig people are using the Goodwill boxes. You saw the ones down near our place, Yard 4. That's the garbage dump. throw your household garbage out there, don't take it to the convenience center. There's gotta be some kind of rule, you cannot be a pig and live in this county, or visit this county. It's deplorable and it's awful.
Speaking, you brought up, Mr. Gaines, Utica. I feel like, and we're on litter, is there the ability to expand, to have solid waste receptacles and stuff in there, having because I know we have Strawberry Farm, and that's the closest one to that area, but Strawberry Farm is packed. It's one of the busiest in the area.
It's our busiest center by double.
Would we, if we put something in the Utica area, you're putting more vehicles in there, would you have the ability to put something like that in there? No?
We could, but if we do it in Utica, we need to do it in every community. I mean, there are communities outside of municipal limits that pay for private trash pickup, and people in Utica can pay for private trash pickup. But the container, and I'm not gonna call you out on it, Kyle, but we had a container that we took down to a recent piece of property that we purchased. We left it overnight and we came back the next day, and not only was the container full, it was full of things that should have never been put in a garbage container in the first place. The door was on the rear side, it was almost removed. Until we find a balance and until we find a balance in the community where we can trust that when we put an empty container out there, one, that it won't be demolished before we go pick it up, or two, that the items in the container can be accepted by us as regular waste. You can put a sign on a container and say tires only and come back the next day and it's not gonna have one tire in it.
Well, I'm
It's
not
gonna have
talking
a
about a
chair,
container, I'm
and-
talking about an entire recycling center in that
For
area.
a couple $1 million, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm guessing. To have something like what we've built
No, we'd have
in-
to do a land acquisition there as well.
So like what we've built in Richland or what we've built in Salem, those are about $1 million and a half to
No,
build.
We might be better off just to pay Seneca to annex Utica.
at the time, those were built, yes, but, when we purchased 12 pieces of parcel to build the recycling centers. There's one that we did not build because there was no demonstration of need, and after looking at the geographic location, and it was at Northern Highway 11, every recycling center in Oconee County is within 7 miles of a residence at the time that these recycling centers were built. We could do the same kind of study that we've done with the substations and looking at the ISO. And I do want to go back to the substation thing. We talk about the underserved. There's only 188. We're not talking about a huge section of people underserved by fire. It's still, 188 matters, but I don't want people to think there's a whole district of not being served out there. And the triangle to build that is very tiny, in order for us to hit both points, which is why it would make sense to separate it. But if we wanted to build additional convenience centers, yes, but if we're going to put that sort of capital investment into solid waste, I think honestly for the county, it would probably be better, as you said earlier, for us to make a plan, look at the funding mechanism, and then do that implementation process. If we added a convenience center right now without adding the implementation plan for what we're going to do, long-term solution for solid waste, we would need extra trucks, extra staff, extra containers. And not that those things aren't worth it, they are. They hold garbage, it's a waste. But we'd have to weigh that out if we want to make a capital investment in something that may turn out to be a more temporary measure. Could we contract with the municipality to provide curbside service? Possibly. I mean, municipalities provide outside of city limits curbside service right now. I'm the last house in my city that is in the municipal limit, but the street behind me, I'll have City of Walhalla can. So I know that the cities can and do go outside of city limits. Is that something we would like to consider? Maybe. We could build a convenience center in or near Utica. It would cost,
Oh, yeah.
When you asked about the container, I wasn't saying that it can't be done as far as a container, but we learned a lesson by thinking we could drop one off one afternoon and then come back the next day and work on something ourselves. Because it was absolutely and completely full to the point where we had to take equipment to go get it closed enough to where we could take it away. But speaking of the litter, Mr. Elliott said, coming up with the team, I just pointed to Mr. Kane here. I actually wrote down local litter task force. I mean, it's something, our litter ordinance was written years and years ago. And increasing the fines would be good because we don't collect 1,000 a year right now. I don't think we've had, where's that in the book? Anybody noticed it the other day?
Yeah, it's under the fines and fees.
Because it's so hard to prosecute. I mean, you can't fingerprint a Hardee's bag, and unless they throw, and Sheriff, please speak up, and I know if I'm wrong here, but most of the litter, at least like when we go out and do our litter pickups, it's not pieces of mail, so it's not even where you can identify someone.
Well, and you can't even, I mean, let's be honest, when we go and pick up garbage, some of the litter from the roadside comes from the receptacles that we're moving from A to
exactly.
B, so it's kind of like, I know I don't litter, but if you, of course, I shred my trash too, so I don't have to worry about that. But, at the end of the day, if we up our litter fines, which we can, if we increase our signage showing the litter areas, I mean, I live on Cedar Lane Road, I pick up a case of beer a week on my road, all the way down it. And especially, I sometimes want to put up a trash can with a backboard, just so they'll throw it in there. At least it'll give them something to aim at. And then I'm going to encourage, them to do that. But it's just amazing to me, the amount of stuff that, some people say what flies out of the back of the truck. I bet you that counts for 2% of the garbage on the side of the road. The majority of what I see, it's just crazy. Bags of trash that have been unloaded in specific areas. So, especially some of the rural areas. So, we talked about some deputies, we'll have Sheriff Crenshaw. I know you didn't plan to prepare anything, but we're talking about litter and deputies. I think it'd be a good time to you're the enforcer.
I appreciate the opportunity to share with you thoughts a little bit, if I may, on litter. I know we've gone around and tried to get restaurants with drive-throughs to put a trash receptacle at their drive-through. And we've, get feedback on that. Well, I don't have the personnel, I don't have the employees to empty it every day, keep up with it. But I tend to think that would make a difference. I don't know. I mean, Taco Bell is the only restaurant that I know that has a receptacle, and you go by there and it's full. So, and again, promoting litter education, something with Oconee County on it. But I don't know if that's a possibility of solid waste, part-time personnel or something, somebody to empty those receptacles. You'd have to
Could
have.
not be a part-time. It'd have to be a full-time position.
It probably would. So that's one thought I know that we've talked about as a staff, and trying to look at, we'll share with you, inmate labor picked up about 27,000 pounds last year compared to 20,000 pounds the year before. So we're increasing every year. You've given us that extra litter person, and so this year should be even greater because they're going to be working inmates full-time every day. So, but I do think, the litter fund, the old saying, getting blood from a turnip. Some of these folks, the judge orders the fine and they don't pay it, and they end up serving 15 days in our detention center. But I appreciate your commitment to it, and hopefully all of us working together can make that difference. I do think education, we've got to change that culture somehow, whether it's signs everywhere of don't litter. So as far as staffing, depending on what government numbers you look at, it says you should have 1.5 to 1.6 officers for every 1,000 citizens. So you do the math, 77,000 citizens at 1.5, I think we should have about 115. At 1.6, I think it's about 123, if my math's right. And even counting our 18 SROs right now, class 1 full-time, we're just over 100. So, by no means am I saying we need 15 deputies this year. I talked with our administrator, Mr. Davis, like you said, with a plan, if we can get a plan, if you can at least based on revenue, add one a year, going forward with as the population continues to grow, let's look at adding at least one deputy per year. With the calls for service now, but basically, we're getting into a situation where we're reactive. We're not able to do a lot of proactive policing in rural areas and in communities because we're jumping from call to call. When we can be proactive, we can see greater differences. We can put 3 or 4 officers in Utica for a month and stop every violation we see. You can see a positive difference in the crime in that neighborhood. So that's kind of, as far as the numbers go, G, and we're potentially or Mr. Davis, I'm sorry, where we would ideally like to be in the 115 to 120 range based on the current population.
Sheriff, why not 15? Why not?
I'm just thinking tax increase. I know you as council members have tried to be conservative, but.
Sheriff, we spend money on all these other studies and stuff, and yet I'm tired of getting scolded for not locking my gate by McMahon when he comes by and finds my gate open, I'm not there. He reminds me, you're gonna get hit one of these days. How about when you're getting robbed and you call for the sheriff's department? I've just been broke into, and the poor dispatcher has to say, well, the first available deputy we will send to you. She's not being lazy. She's got other deputies out there. They've got priorities. There's something actually is going on right now before they can get to you.
That's certainly a concern.
I mean, we can't ignore the fact of your charge, no matter how many guns you think you got in your house. I'm not in the military anymore. I don't have to stand watch with a rifle. And I depend on you to, when I go to sleep, I ain't gotta worry about something going on. And everybody needs to look at this. Do you want to be protected by the sheriff, or do you want to go back to where you gotta walk and stay awake all night with a rifle?
Additional concern as we move forward, and again, we've working with Ms. Brock on this as far as the budget this year. Fire service, look at how big our fire service has grown, and our dispatchers. We get complaints from firemen not being able to answer them, so we've talked with her about that, maybe adding at least a dispatcher a year. Our average daily population in the jail has gone from 18 to 19, from 150, 60 up to about 190 average this past year. So, we're seeing more people in the jail, which is we're gonna need more correctional officers with our staffing as we move forward. So, again, we're working with her, trying to come up with a plan now, maybe to rename some positions to possibly create at least one position in the jail. So, the need's there, Mr. McCall, no doubt. The need, we could use them tomorrow.
Do we need to address the need?
There's some grant opportunities available as well this year. Talked with Ms. Grant, or Ms. Brock, and our grants administrator about that. There's some cops hiring grants that's available for personnel. So that's something else to.
Because when you need the sheriff now. You don't need the sheriff, well, I'll make an appointment to see about when I got robbed or vandalized or whatever. You're like the fire department. You don't need to invite the firemen over for coffee. When you call them, you got a real emergency. You're in the same situation. We got a real emergency.
I totally agree.
Unlike the fire department, where you can run away from the fire, a lot of times you got a bunch of crackheads breaking into your place, and you try to stop them. You go to hose them down with a rifle, or you go get yourself hosed.
Yes, sir.
That's a bad situation.
One more thing, just for the record, Mr. Kane, we had one homicide last year.
Okay.
Had 2 the year before.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So does anybody have a number on the officers that you're thinking that we need?
15.
If I may, the sheriff and I, with the one a year, we need to add one in dispatch. It's great to have officers on the street. We're looking at adding an EMS dispatcher from Prisma Health in a partnership there. Looking at renaming a couple of positions within the organization. I certainly don't want to say that we won't fund 15, but I will say that I don't know that that's in my physical or fiscal abilities.
Shouldn't we, just like the vehicle replacement
An
plan?
implementation plan.
We should have a plan, okay, here's the target that we want to get to.
Correct,
And it's
correct.
gonna take 5 years because of budget constraints, whatever it is, and versus going out next year and hiring 15, with patrol car, what is that, over 100,000 or more?
It's
Correct.
Pretty rough.
Yeah, so, I mean, we should have a plan.
We should.
How we gonna get to where we wanna go?
And that's exactly what we were working on, under the sheriff's department is animal control, communications, the detention center, and the sheriff's office itself, which is an enormous amount of responsibility as far as staffing. But he
As
doesn't
long
have,
as you educate the taxpayers,
absolutely.
they're gonna agree with you. As long as they
Absolutely.
understand that there's a 1 mil increase every year for the next 5 years. to
And
get
we'd
police
actually
protection up to where it
considered-
needs to be, then taxpayers will be okay, as long as we explain that to them.
And there may need to be some discussion, I'm making some notes here on the things that we've discussed. It seems like we've got, sewer's gonna be an ongoing priority for the county. Sheriff's officers and public safety is gonna be an ongoing priority for the county. As we go through the budget cycle this year, and we may wanna have one of our budget workshops is for actually to discuss what are things we need to establish as something we need identified, positive, sustainable funding for. Okay, sheriff's office, we're always gonna need X number of dollars for public safety, vehicle replacement. Why not create a certain amount of millage that is automatically dog-eared for that one expense? That way, when you're looking through the annual budget, you're only looking at what's an operational cost.
And the other thing is, I know we're working on this, is, okay, we know the road to Quincy Verse is coming up here.
Yes,
We challenge y'all to come back with impact fees. That will help us.
Correct.
Because, I mean, I know everybody saw the news this weekend about the craziness that went on down there toward Epic.
yes.
So, I mean, so there's gonna be more of a demand. That could help pay for some of this.
Correct. And Mr. McCall bringing up that housing and Philos, and I'm glad you mentioned the impact fees, because that's something we'll probably, and maybe what we need to do is kind of like we did today. Let's discuss what we're willing to have impact fees implemented for and what we're not willing to have fees implemented for. And as we look toward the next 3 to 5 years, we know that stormwater is going to be something we're going to have to fund. We already know that. We know that the county planning is going to need to expand. I mean, this county is growing faster, as Sheriff just said, than most of the departments here. We know that we need staff in road department. We'll go through this when we go through our first budget meeting. I think today has been a really good eye-opener for me as to the direction that this council wants to go, short and long-term. And it looks like that we're ready to make the commitment to start committing funding for these things and not just words. And that's a significant thing for a person, me or anyone else as the administrator establishing a budget. Because dog-earing funds for certain things without it having to be weighed and balanced each year, because generally it's those invisible things that get cut first because everyone wants to see the impact of the expenditure. And things have been cut. We've added staff here and there, but in 2016, we cut 13 positions and then reallocated some of the 13 that were cut to another department here or there. But departmentally, communications, I looked back, what was that, 7 or 8 years? I mean, our population has exploded in the past 7 or 8 years, and we haven't added anyone to answer the 911 calls. And Wayne's exactly right, Mr. McCall is exactly right. When you call, you want somebody to answer on the other end of the phone, and when you have someone that, there isn't enough people to answer the phone.
Well, maybe we need to, in the budget, we need to redirect funds to the core values of what I brought up earlier of government: fire, public safety, and health and welfare.
Those are our largest 3 expenditure areas at this moment. I mean, we still have to operate a government, and diverting funds from us having staff at the road department may take away from us having safety, welfare,
I mean, there is a balance on everything that we do, and of
There's no,
course,
there's
it's
no
a
easy,
tightrope.
well, there's no easy way. It's
There
like
is
the-
not. You're
Like the
absolutely
Caterpillar
right.
commercial said, there's no easy, only logical solutions.
Makes perfect sense. So if y'all wouldn't mind, I'd like to I went through your sheets here and kind of scored each of the items, and if there's somebody that wants to, of course, these are not weighted or voted on, but the ones that I picked out the most, just for me, as far as us planning our budget, we've got sewer to exits 1, 2, 3, and 4, 3 being the bridge. Everybody in agreement with that one? We had 3 marks for that. Litter awareness control, we got 3 marks for. Bounty Land traffic et al. We got a lot of commenting about Bounty Land fire potential relocation and/or building a substation there. Airport improvement plans, and of course, solid waste and recycling. Number 2s came in at healthcare, general healthcare countywide, Utica corridor plan, and then we have some straggling ones with the technology, which is not saying these straggling ones are not important, but these were just Greenway connections, industrial property in the Westminster area, the increase for 1.5% for staff annually, Fair Place School, Fire Department, demolition, sewer, High Falls expansion, and including amenities at PRT. Anything I leave off, anybody?
Let's don't forget, we all agreed on increasing the unassigned fund balance.
Yes, actually though, I didn't even write that down as a priority because that's also one of those things that I think when we start, and I said I could create some budget workshop notes, I think annually when we pass the budget that there should be included language unless council votes otherwise to expend any unexpended funds. Remaining funds from this fiscal year's budget, meaning the current year that you're passing, will go to unassigned fund balance. That way there isn't a choice. And once that is passed by ordinance, for it to be undone would have to be by ordinance.
How close are we getting to the ordinance that we originally passed? I guess it was last year, on putting that percentage back. Where are we at in there?
We'll be at what, 11.6% this year or so?
Yeah, it was,
We're creeping.
Yep.
We're creeping. But this past, or the FY19 funds will help considerably. That'll be the highest percentage we've put in since the establishment.
Hard times aren't creepy.
Well, it also
Correct.
speaks volumes to not only have we not spent that excess, we didn't spend that excess on a recurring item that was going to happen the following year that seemed like that happened for about 3 years in a row. Because, it's fine if you allot that money to something that you have to have or whatever, but when you create a recurring expense and the taxation doesn't keep up with it, it runs you into a wall, and that's where we were at last year. So I appreciate council continuing to have that emphasis on making sure if we spend money, is that recurring money? Is that a recurring expenditure, or is that a one-time expenditure? So, thank y'all for doing that. That makes our administrative and our budgeting and our finance office probably sleep better at night.
It's definitely easier to work with them. And there will be times when we're going to have to make large, unforeseen one-time expenses. The Cyber Day was one of those things. We went out and before making these rash purchases, of course, we studied everything inside and out, but we made a large, significant purchase into software. And we had budgeted for that because it was a priority of council last year. It just came upon us quicker than we thought and was a little more expensive than we budgeted for, but we made it work. And having recurring expenses come at the end of the budget year that you've already, if you're doing it at the end of one budget year, your next budget year is already being worked on, so you're already in a deficit starting out.
We don't need to touch base on it, because I think we have the departmental needs, asset, and pre-budget, so I know we're gonna move forward with that. But any other, due to time, I'm looking at us, making sure we stay on time. Any other discussion? Ms. Rock, anything else from you?
No, sir, thank you all. Thank you all.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.